taking the time to join us today. We wanted to put together a real power women panel from all edges of the globe to talk through career stories and also give a bit of an understanding as to how you would approach these ladies, whether that be to work for them in terms of internships, or if you were going to pitch to a magazine editor, what you might need to say, and also just hear a few of the war wounds. We're going to keep it real today. So the first thing about the initiative, I'm Charlotte Mair. I'm the founder and managing director of brand communications company The Fitting Room in London. I started the It's Time movement back in September. Originally, it was about bringing together brilliant women in marketing and communications and at a very senior level and meeting up and swapping war wounds and talking about how we can do more. It very quickly evolved and we have now ended up here doing our international edition. A little while ago, it was a hot minute ago, we came across Danielle, who is the founder and CEO of an agency in New York called the Bonita Project. And we really loved the values and the belief that she had from building her agency. And we said, do you know what, let's team up and do something together. And obviously COVID happened and it felt like a brilliant opportunity to use the wonder that is Zoom that's come into all of our lives to an extreme of the last few months. So I started my career in events and then did a pivot into communications and PR. When I grew up, I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me in the media, and I sort of set off on a personal mission to change that. And that definitely built my resilience and my desire to push boundaries, which, if you know my agency in London, that's very much what we live to do. So this is our third event for the It's Time movement, and it's our international one. So I had actually written a bit of an opener yesterday of what I was going to say to welcome everybody today. And the news cycle changed very rapidly to a story that I think everybody is probably very aware of at the moment. And what it did was it reignited me to take a step back and go back to my core and remember why I got into communications and what I wanted to do to influence it. I think most young women will say that they watch The Devil Wears Prada and all of those very sexy, sassy films that make you think you're going to be swanning around New York and LA living the good big life. I'd say maybe 5% of that is real to the actual war that we go into doing communications in the many different platforms and channels that is. But for me, when I think about being a communicator, and what I say to my team is, this is about the power of words. It's about how you use words to make somebody feel a certain way. It's about how you use words to drive authenticity. I think as we continue to navigate through the challenges that we've got as a world, as a globe at the moment, it comes more and more down to truth and how we tell that truth. And I think we've kind of shifted from a very glossy world to actually the real and spilling the tea and giving the stuff that people didn't previously want to hear. It's truth. And we sort of, when we were talking about the landscape earlier, we were discussing how far it has moved from the more traditional way of you write a press release and everything else now. You know, a brand, a person can build their whole narrative through social media without a journalist picking up a pen. They can do it in so many different mediums now. You've got camera phones, you can't hide anywhere. The truth is out there. And that's really readjusted and made the industry pivot. So today, we've got a really varied audience. We've got some students from across the globe tuning in. We've also got some CMOs, some marketing directors, people that are looking to make changes within their business, especially with the current environment that we're operating in. So the questions are quite varied today, but we think we've got something for everybody. And we will have a Q&A at the end, so you can just drop any Q&As that you've got into the Dropbox you can see at the bottom, and we will pull them through, and when we get to the very end we will go through as best we can. So that is it from me, and I'm going to hand over to my right hand woman Danielle, who is the founder and CEO of the Bonita Project in New York.
Hi everyone, or how I would say hi Bonitas. Thank you for the introduction, Charlotte. My name is Danielle Alvarez. I'm the founder of the Bonita Project, for those that don't know me. I launched my agency back in 2018. I do come from a beauty PR background, working as the quote-unquote multicultural expert when it came to talking about all things Black and brown, even Asian. And I I found like there was a need to do multicultural marketing right. And that was basically what inspired me to launch my very own agency. While I'm Latina and I community, I'm also very adamant about also teaching others and partnering with other voices in the multicultural community, whether it's the Black community or whether it's even the Asian community. And I think it's so important now that, you know, a lot of brands are definitely paying much more attention to us in different ways. I mean, it's still a work in progress and there's still work that definitely needs to be made, but that's basically what the Bonita Project stands for. If you guys follow us on social media, you'll see the work that we've done. We work with a great roster of beauty brands. Again, my background is beauty. I do work with a lot of indie beauty brands, Latina-owned brands, and also a Black-owned brand as well. So I'm very proud of that. And I think, you know, to Charlotte's point, I think what inspired me to launch my own agency was to give a voice for others that need it, right? Like I came from working with bigger brands and doing the PR and all that stuff, but I just felt like after 7 years, I felt like my purpose there was done. And I was like, why can't I give that same effort to the brands that I actually relate to and care about? And that's, again, what the Bonita Project stands for. So anyways, long story short, that's why we're here. And I'm so excited to be partnering with the Fitting Room. And I'm very excited to be announcing our panelists, our Bonita panelists for today. So I'm going to introduce each and every one of you. And then after I give an introduction, I'm going to let them give each other, have them give us a little bit of background of what they do. So first and foremost, we have Kylie Hughes, who is a beauty publicist. Well, she's a publicist of all things based in LA, and she's the founder of 6-1 Agency. We also have Bianca London, who's the website director of British Glamour. I wish I could say it in my best British accent, but I can't. We also have Vanessa Anderson, who is the founder of MCM-PR Group. And then last but not least, we have Francoise Blanchette, who is the founder of MCM-PR. So ladies, again, thank you for joining us on this lovely, Wednesday. And Kylie, if you wanna, I'll start off with you, letting us know a little bit about you and what you do.
Yes, hi everyone, and thanks Danielle and Charlotte for organizing this and bringing us all together. So, as Danielle mentioned, I have a boutique agency that's based in Los Angeles. I was previously living and working in New York as well as Australia. The name of my company is 6-1, and although you guys have never met me, I am 6'1", and I also named my business after the area code of Australia, which is where I really originated the idea, but more importantly, where I actually attracted my first client, Frank Body. We also, like Danielle, specialize in beauty, wellness, and lifestyle. A lot of my companies, or a lot of the brands, I should say, that I work with are based overseas, primarily in Asia, Australia, and the UK. We actually only have 2 clients that are based here in the US. And we work with brands across not only the media landscape, but equally also helping them from a brand strategy to also execution on product distribution and now virtual events. So I'm excited to be here, and thank you again.
Thank you, Kylie. And then up next, we'll let Bianca give us a mini intro.
Hello, hopefully you can hear me because I always leave myself on mute, but thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I'm Bianca. I'm the website director at British Glamour. So I've been there for about 2.5 years now, and I came on board as it was kind of reimagined as a digital first publication. So it's really exciting. We went down to 2 prints a year. And then, yeah, focused on our digital output. And prior to that, I was at the Mail Online as assistant female editor for, I think, 6 years. And I also worked in the commercial department there, sort of launching their affiliates program as well. So I've had a bit of a mixture of, commercial and editorial. And at Glamour, I also work across the commercial team. So a bit of everything.
Thank you, Bianca. All right. And then up next, we have Vanessa Anderson from MCM-PR Group, if you want to give a little intro.
Hi, everyone. I'm Vanessa. I own a company called MCM-PR Group. Started in 2010, at least legally, but definitely was working on the low, doing whatever I could, starting in 2008. We specialize in TV and film talent. I think Francoise also works with talent, but our focus is really talent and how we can connect them sometimes with brands. Yeah, we love this work. I love being able to find talent that is emerging or even people who want to, make a switch. Maybe you are a writer and you are thinking about going into acting, or you're a writer who wants to start directing. Like, we really love working with multi-hyphenates. I think that's our sweet spot. Our focus is definitely people of color and women. So pretty much all of my clientele and my roster are Black people and largely Black women. I've really decided in the past couple of years to double down on that and be really unapologetic about the clientele that I represent. So, yeah.
Amazing. And then last but not least, the OG, Francoise.
Hi, am I here now?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm Francoise Blanchette of MCM-PR. I've been working in this business for a long time, since I was in high school, interning for Def Jam Records in Columbia, and actually was a college rep for Def Jam, worked with a lot of their projects, came out of school, wasn't sure if I really wanted to go back in the music industry, so I worked for Pfizer for a while, doing a lot of meeting planning for Lipitor, Exubera, and I got a lot of event and meeting planning experience from them, doing events on a large scale. Then I missed the music business a little bit, so I went to Sony. I worked for luxury marketing, and we did all of Sony, whether it's electronics, whether it's launching, music with Beyonce or Prince or Bruce Springsteen, to electronics, to movies like Spider-Man and We Own the Night. And then got recruited randomly to a fashion company where they wanted me to bring my PR and celebrity expertise. And I did openings or open stores for Macy's, Bloomingdale's, Belk. And then started my own agency in 2010 and kind of used all of those experiences from having fashion, being in the music, learning about brand partnerships and events to create my own agency and give my clients a 360 PR, whether I could get them into anything, that's what it's my expertise. And now I work with brands, I work with musical artists, I work with islands. I actually advise with Jamaica and Anguilla Tourism, and brands, and as well as I've stepped into cannabis and tech recently, and so that's basically my business right now.
I love it. I hope you guys are taking this all in, the diversity in the room of just each and every industry, which we will get into. So thank you again for everybody sharing their introduction on what they do. And so let's start off with the question. So again, just a reminder, we will be answering the Q&As at the very end. So make sure to use the Q&A box below to input your question. So First question, how have each of you built and maintained a network of reliable contacts, right? Because we as publicists, we all rely on our contacts. We have our friendlies, but we also have those that we constantly stalk, and it's like, I need my feature ASAP. So right. If each of you guys have, Francoise, we'll start off with you because you've been in the game for a very long time.
Yeah.
How have you built your contacts over time, and any tips that you may have to share with, or any stories or anything that you may want to share with our audience?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to come up with a lot of people who have big jobs now. They're editors. And what I realized over the years is just not only having those contacts, it's like being in the know, knowing bloggers, knowing editors, knowing contributors, because sometimes the big editors only want the big ideas. They only want the big stories. So what I've been doing is basically keeping my contacts, but also going to events, meeting up with bloggers, meeting up with contributors in any kind of way, because sometimes my story might not be big enough for the editor, but the contributor who has to put in stories, has a quota of stories they have to put in for a week might be interested. So just being, not only just having friends at the higher up, just keeping contacts with everybody, that can help your business. And as well, the reality of it is that you have to go to birthday parties, you have to go to anniversaries, you have to celebrate them on their birthday, just to show them that you're caring, you're outside of business, that you're your friend.
I was just going to echo exactly what Francoise said. I've had the pleasure of actually working for a lot of big brands over the years, and 99% of our business is by referral. So having worked at Nike and Amazon and Luxottica and Net-a-Porter, L'Oreal, I'm a big believer in be careful of the toes you step on, because they're attached to the ass you're kissing tomorrow. And so there's a reality and truth in that. And as you move along in your career, there's oftentimes where people will come back through your whatever, be it immediate or years down the road. And I'm a lot older than many of those that are in attendance. So those are also decision makers now who are sitting at the helm and able to bring on agency support or enlist our services for just a project. So it's actually been one of those things, remaining in communication, and a platform like LinkedIn has served me well over the years. And also, in addition, living in other parts of the world has been a blessing, to live in Australia and equally also in other cities. So, you know, I would say, in addition to not only LinkedIn, using Instagram in a purposeful way that doesn't necessarily come across as too aggressive, but being able to follow, comment, and on occasion, if you feel comfortable, DMing.
To go with Kylie, it's referral based. If you have a boutique agency, it's a referral based. I mean, all of my clients are from referral, and you have to be a reliable person and deliver. And I think your contacts see that, and they want to refer you and actually work with you in your projects as well.
I was gonna add too, I think I grew up with my grandparents, and one of the lessons that I learned really, really young from my grandmother was the value in saying thank you to people. And sometimes what my grandmother used to do with her friends is she would send them thinking of you cards. And I always thought that that was so interesting, because I was like, you could just pick up the phone and call people. But there's really something special about people getting something in the mail. So what we try to do, obviously, I think the quarantine has made it a little bit different, but when I first started, I was really good about, if you did anything for me, you know, if you just gave me the contact of a writer that I was looking for, if you wrote a story about a client, I would send people $5 Jamba Juice cards. That's all I could afford. But it was a small effort, you know, but I think it really helped. And I think, to Fran's point, you know, I started in 2010, and a lot of those people have become, you know, entertainment directors and executive editors. And now I can go to them really with anything. And because we've established a relationship that's really started with me saying, thank you, I appreciate what you did for me, you know, they're happy to help me out now. I think the other way, if you don't have, you know, the means to give out something like a gift card, or maybe you're trying to build a relationship with someone, is you have to follow their work. You know, if they write a piece that you're really impressed with, send them a note and say, hey man, I read the story that you did. I really loved your perspective on this. Every writer wants to be acknowledged for their writing. So, you know, especially if it's good, like, tell them, hey, this is a really good piece. I really like it. That goes a long, long way.
Yeah, I totally agree with the thank you notes. It's such a nice touch. Obviously, keeping contacts for me as like freelancers and ex-editors is really important for like my future as a journalist. So when I used to do work experience, I remember doing, I think it was Country Living magazine, and they all were like really into organic food at that time, and it wasn't really like a big fad. And I went out and bought like lots of organic ingredients and made them all cupcakes at the end of my week's work experience and wrote them all notes. And then they referred me for an internship at Elle after that, because they were really grateful for that little like token. I just know that, yeah, when we've had people coming in and they write like a little note, say thank you, and as you said, like complimenting people's work, it's just so important to show that you're actually like interested and you've appreciated your experience there. And after, kind of like, if I go on a press trip, I'll always write a card and say thank you so much for having me afterwards, because I just think they've really like gone to a lot of effort to organize it for you. And yeah, I just think it's such a small gesture, but it goes a long way.
We were actually talking about earlier on when we were rehearsing the pain of gifting from a comms PR person perspective. I think every PR person has had the day from hell, couriers going to the wrong places, tissue paper not arriving, ribbon not arriving branded. I think sometimes, obviously so much arrives at the media houses, but what goes on in the back end at the PR office is absolute carnage. Some of my team actively avoid being in on a gifting day because they can't take the stress that goes with it. So that's really nice to hear from an editorial perspective, that you guys always say thank you and understand where we're coming from.
We're like super grateful. One good thing that's come of quarantine is that we're not eating like a lot of cupcakes and stuff, because I mean, it's so great when they come in, but
so I'm going to start the next question. I'm going to start it to Fran, because I know Francoise and I've spent nights in New York at parties with Francoise. The industry of sort of, I guess, communications has changed quite a lot over the last few years. obviously the rise and the power of social media. People can tell their stories in completely different ways now. And I guess what quarantine has done, you know, if you take Versus TV with Swizz and Timbaland, if you take Tory Lanez Quarantine Radio, these big new things have been born out of complete creativity. Travis Scott launching the album in fortnight, these incredible things within the culture have happened. How do you guys stay relevant, up to speed? Where do you get your insights from? That essentially, I think a challenge for agencies at the moment is pushing your clients. There's this race to be ahead, nail the message, but be doing it really innovatively, really creative. Where do you guys, what spaces do you look to for that innovation?
Oh, well, yeah, my business definitely, I'm thriving, but a lot of my business was in events, so we had to pivot a lot. I mean, I was going to be working in a lot of the festivals abroad in the UK with you, as well as some other things around Europe and Africa, and that business is completely gone. So we've had to pivot, but fortunately, people have been very interested in digital PR. And so I've gotten clients from Africa, from Europe, trying to figure out how to merge. And so what I've been doing is trying to figure out the US link. And so whether it's figuring out somebody to collab with them on a song, whether it's figuring out a media outlet that normally wouldn't cover them, whether it's, I had a client, Conscious and Afrobeat, did a video via Zoom, just figuring out ways. And then also trying to figure out other outlets they can be in. So if you have an artist seeing maybe a business outlet that want to talk about them, maybe there's an art blog that wants to talk about them. It's not always going to the mainstream, but actually getting content out there any way possible and be successful through blogs, through panels like this, virtual and digital panels and things like that. Just innovatively working their way through anything digital or virtual to get them eyes on them and their project. As well as using Instagram Live. I mean, Live has been amazing for clients to be able to express themselves. They've been able to pull out their second talent, you know, whatever that talent is, and just figuring out outlets that will talk about it. I mean, even the morning show, like today's show, they're picking up on the lives and whatever you're talking about. They weren't interested in anything virtual. So I think the media has become accustomed to it now and just figuring out where to put them, for sure.
Kylie?
Yeah, you know, I have tapped into a lot of my peers working with several PRs. I don't really look at any publicists as a threat, to be quite honest. I think there is so much food on the table. We can all collab together and work together. And so I've made a point, having just landed in LA 2 years ago, to really connect. And that's even how Danielle and I got in touch, is just to be in conversations regardless of skin color, and really just being able to work and ask and seek for more knowledge. In fact, I have also been tapped into there's a newsletter called The Beauty Loop by a woman by the name of Erica Metzner, and she sends out a weekly roundup of all the desk sides, virtual desk sides. In fact, my team is working on one right now with a client of ours, and we're just bringing media. So I've tapped in from a personal level, and then of course there's various platforms, whether it's Create and Cultivate, Girl Boss, just being able to see what's out there and adapt. Many of my clients are behind the scenes. They're not very forthcoming. I mean, the beauty industry, sadly, has a lot of VC money in it. When I say VC, it's mostly a lot of men, because the markups are very high. So they tend to want to be behind the scenes. But for those, like Tia Mowry is a client of ours. She has a wellness brand. She wants to be, of course, forthcoming. So I'll work with her publicist on potential opportunities and collab. So it's a combination of things. And I'm really just more so tapping in, asking questions, and keeping my ear to the ground.
I think the initial question is, you know, like, what tools are you using, or how are you, finding out how to stay relevant in this time? And the best thing that you can do, at least that we've done, is, we've gone, obviously digital and social media platforms are where it's at, especially for me, who works very heavily, pretty much just only on the talent side. So you have to really kind of tap into your creativity with the client, without the client. Sometimes, a lot of my clients don't want to do IG lives anymore. They're like, I'm over it. I've done 5, I'm maxed out. So sometimes it's being creative and saying, okay, we have this project to promote. We obviously can't go on a traditional media run. A lot of when the quarantine first happened, a lot of your traditional TV platforms hadn't figured out the technology on how to do interviews for TV via Zoom or Skype. So we had to get really inventive, and we were like, okay, well, how do we make this work? Some of my clients have really terrible internet, so you just kind of have to tap into another part of yourself. And what we also did too was we reached out to our friends at Instagram, or at Facebook rather, and said, hey, what are some best practices that we can share with our clients? Because that platform is constantly changing as well, and they're always revealing or putting out new products. So yeah, reaching out to your network and saying, hey, like, how do you use this? I think something that I really like to pride myself on is I know I don't know how to do everything. So I try to hire people who know how to do things really well. There's a young lady on my team who, if I didn't have her, I don't think I would even know how to turn Zoom on. So, and then also, like, I check in with my niece, she's 18, and I say, where are you and your friends finding stuff? Where do you go for content? Who's hot? Is Snapchat still a thing? Should I be putting my clients on that platform? And she's really honest. And she's like, no, they're too old, or no one cares about that. And she's like, these are the people you should be working with if you want to do stuff on this platform. So, using your network, and then also knowing what your limits are and finding people who excel in those areas.
I think that's really interesting what you said at the end there, Vanessa. I have a 19-year-old sister, and she is savage. If we're all a lot older than her by sort of 15, 18 years, and if we say, is this cool? She's like, well, the fact that you're using the word cool is not cool. If you have to ask, it's not. And I'm like, okay. But interestingly from her, she was like, well, we've got 3 Instagram accounts. One's your spam account where you just post what you like. One's your Priv account that's just for the crew. And one is your Shiny account. I'm sorry, what? You're controlling 3 Instagram accounts. And she's like, well, you don't use stories. You don't use Instagram stories. We're over on Snapchat. That's where we do our story sharing. And I was like, my mind is blown. And then you start to completely rethink strategies that need that market, those younger ones coming through. She is my absolute sense check for cool and not cool.
Right, so we have our next question, and this is geared towards Bianca, just because we want to get some of the intel on the editorial side. So Bianca, you visited us from the editorial side, and we'd love to know how you've seen your industry change over the last couple of years. I mean, especially now with COVID. This is like such a typical question, but I had to ask, how are the pitch emails that you receive now different from 5 years ago? And we discussed this a little bit earlier, that traditional PR has evolved in so many ways. Like even just 10 years ago from when I started PR, like I at least got, and I'm very thankful that I got the experience of learning how to pitch long lead and short lead, and we're not going to get into those technical terms, but what the difference was between when you pitch an actual print magazine between when you pitch a digital magazine. Things have changed, and especially now with COVID. So Bianca, we just love to know and hear from you, like how you've seen the difference change, and any tips that you have for us publicists when pitching and reaching out to you.
Sure. So I've kind of been lucky to always work digital, because I started off at the Mail on Sunday on the features team, but I knew that I wanted to go digital just because I loved Mail Online. I love reading the gossip. So I was like, I feel like this is where I belong. So I started that, I think, when it was just kind of all kicking off. There was only 2 of us on the team. And I couldn't believe the pace. We were doing like 20 stories a day. It was crazy. So I was always like really, really thirsty for ideas. So for me, I'm literally like, the more is the merrier. I kind of like love getting emails from PRs, because every day we write, I think, 25 stories online on Glamour now. So yeah, definitely the more the merrier. And every morning, kind of like how it works for us is we'll do like a little Zoom news conference, and everyone goes through what they're working on that day. People probably do like 4 stories each maybe. But something that I think has really changed, I didn't really know about when I was at the Mail. We just did, pumping out the news stories. I've really kind of learned like the value of SEO and search from Google, because actually that makes up 70% of our traffic on Glamour, which is just mad. And I think Vanessa was saying, like the platforms change and the algorithms change, and if Google changes its algorithm, our traffic can kind of like plummet. So for us, there's a lot of emphasis on like the search traffic. So as well as doing the day-to-day news stories, we also have a lot of like evergreen content that people are constantly searching, and we work on getting our ranking high on Google. So for an example, like the Kardashian family tree, we're like #1 ranked on Google for that, which I didn't even think about people would be searching that. But when I joined, we get like thousands of hits every day just from people searching that. So it's kind of about maintaining your evergreen content as well as having the new stuff. And what I've learned is that like the reader has just got like a lot savvier. They have a lot of opinions, and there's so much noise out there. There's so many news sites, social media. Everyone thinks that they're like a journalist now, and they're sharing stories which can go viral. It's crazy. So we have to kind of think like we need to be the authority and the expert, and make people want to come to us and keep coming back to us because they know that they can trust us. So every day we look at what's going on in the news, and so like the MD of Condé Nast sort of said, right, when you see a news story, you have to think that everyone has probably read that somewhere else, like on the Mail or BBC, or seen it on the celebrity's Instagram. So you need to think of like, what is the Condé Nast lens? Like, what's going to make it different? Can we put an opinion spin on it? So every day we try and think how we can cover it differently to everyone else. We always try and like review everything. If it's a beauty product or a new fashion range, our fashion editor will try and give some insight, because I just think people think it's like more trusted than, or get an expert quote, some like exclusive standout stats on something, just to make our content just different. I just think if we're writing a story, I'd like it to be completely original, so people can't see it somewhere else and they'll just want to come back to us, that kind of thing. But it is about thinking like outside the box as well. We have to think very 360 with our content as well now. So as well as just doing a straight story, we have to think, how will this work on social and video, and how could it work commercially? And our like latest model is the affiliates model. So we're trying to build up an affiliates team to make commission and revenue through sales. So we have to think about all those different touch points when we're producing a piece of content, which is something I wasn't really used to in my old job at the Mail, because I was just writing straight news. But it is interesting and challenging, and also thinking commercially, because at the end of the day, we're like a business, we have to make money. So I think maybe with print there was a lot of like more like puffy pieces, you might have had an advertiser, so you'd have to write like a nice piece. But I'm very much of the opinion that it has to be really, really honest. That's what the reader wants.
If you were writing 25 stories a day at Glamour, when you were at the Mail, how many stories does the Mail Online put out a day?
I remember the female section alone probably did about 50 or 60, but across the whole website, I don't know, like thousands. You just constantly be like churning away. I think got like RSI constantly. There was no breaks.
We have another next question, and this is for all of you, and we just wanted to jump into this early before people start asking. And this is for our students. If you guys each offer any summer internships or fall internships, and how is one to apply? And especially now with COVID, I mean, we're also even considering hiring remote interns for the first time at the Bonita Project. So curious to know how you guys work with younger talent, and if you guys offer any upcoming opportunities. And we can start off with Bianca.
So obviously it's difficult because of the current climate, because we've had to put hiring like completely on hold. But we usually, when we're in the office, we have a six-month intern. So that's like a paid internship. And I think you can apply on the Condé Nast website. And we basically try and embed them in the team as like much as they can. And they do like a bit of everything, as they get so much experience. And our last intern, Karen, was amazing. She's now gone on to be a beauty writer at Stylist. She was just like incredible. She was so impressive. So we actually put her forward for that job because we knew people that worked there. And then we also do just a week of work experience. But obviously it's going to be difficult now until we get back in the office. But you can just like get in touch with me directly. I don't know how I can like share my details, but you can send over CVs, and we like take people on a week-by-week basis.
We'll put the details on the follow-up email that we send to everyone where they can apply.
I offer internships. Mine are also paid as well. And they're for 3 months. You can go to Glassdoor to actually just have some additional insight as to the intern experience, and just look up 6-1. So you're able to just see a little bit more feedback. I always think when it comes to internships, it's important to do your research and to have a better scope as to like what type of company you'd like to work for. So Glassdoor has been a wonderful resource. At the moment, you know, I'm very open to taking on interns. I just am trying to figure out how we as a business are going to ensure that it is a worthwhile exercise, especially for those that are either still in school or have just left. So my details can equally be shared as well. We don't take on more than 2 interns. The reason being is because we try to do 3 just one-on-one, and they're working not only with myself, but other members of the team. And it actually is positive work. It's not running errands, which is not possible at this moment. And it's not just doing menial tasks. We really do try to provide a 360 POV on how one works in the industry.
Okay, I'll go next. Man, internships are really tricky. You know, I run a small shop, and I more recently have been using internships really as a pipeline for people that I want to hire full-time into the company. It's harder for me to do kind of like short-term internships because we're dealing with talent, and you know, a lot of the times we're sharing people's personal information. So I'm very weary of having people join the team that won't be there for a while, you know, because I don't want people having clients' addresses and knowing their personal information. So I've always been very cautious. I do a lot of vetting as much as I possibly can on each person who I'm interested in possibly having join the team. But yeah, I think for now, I've been using it really as a tool to, you know, find long-term talent for my team. So I really only bring on an intern when I know that there's a need in the company for an additional hire. So yeah, I don't know if that's the best model, but it's the one that's working for us right now. You know, and to that point, because we are a small team, we are constantly talking to each other all day. We really kind of function as, you know, family. We talk about stuff that's outside of work as well, personal goals and, you know, family stuff. So I really also try to be cognizant, is this person's personality and skill set going to mesh well with the women who already work for me? Can I find someone who can bring something that we don't have, a perspective we don't have, a skill set we don't have? So yeah, I don't know if that's the best way to use interns or, you know, to bring that into the company, but that's what's been working for us so far.
And then Francoise, I don't know if you had anything to weigh in on here.
I feel the same way as Vanessa. I mean, I've had some great stories and I've had some nightmare stories dealing with celebrities, and you can vet them as much as you can. I mean, I've had people who had master's degrees and they just disappointed me on the biggest level. But I've also had some amazing interns. My business only takes a certain amount of clients at a time, so my team can usually handle it. If I'm taking on somebody as an intern, it's somebody that I personally know or is a favor to somebody else, not because of a need basis. But when I do take on interns, it's mostly for events. My team can take on the client every day, the day-to-day business. But when I have events, obviously I need a bigger team. Usually I have 1 or 2 events a month. So having that support staff is always there. It's difficult right now because I can't bring anybody on because there's no events happening. But that's basically, or typically the way I bring in interns. But I do have the same sentiments as Vanessa. It's a real tough situation when you're dealing with celebrities who entrust their personal business with you. And you have to like safeguard that. And so it's kind of wary when you want to go into that. But I do encourage internship. That's the way I started. Big businesses and anybody that can take you on for the opportunity, I think is very essential before stepping into the business to really know if you really want to do this. Is to involve yourself in some type of internship, for sure.
The next question is for you again, Fran.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was younger, one of my favorite things was going to buy my cassette tapes and then my CD, then my MP3 player. And I guess the music industry has changed so much. We were talking earlier about the fact that artists can now release their music straight onto Spotify themselves. They can use their social media channels to run their own digital campaign. You can do things like what Travis Scott did and release an album in a game.
Yeah.
And, you know, streaming now obviously contributes a huge amount, but fundamentally, from what I understand, it's the live shows that help artists make a huge amount of their revenue, essentially, and then their side hustle. So in the music world at the moment, what are you seeing as different? So obviously things have moved online and people are doing lives. What's sort of next to come from music?
I think a lot of people are using other platforms to make money or to figure out how to have light the situation. I've seen a lot of people use Twitch as a platform. I mean, Twitch started out with gaming. Basically, people are just tipping gamers all day, to watch them play Fortnite. And now they switched over to content. So a lot of people are thinking, okay, I can throw a concert on Twitch and charge money for it, or I can have content on Twitch and have people tip, or I can have a philanthropic endeavor. And they're doing that as well on YouTube. So I think these virtual spaces are realizing that they're money grabs right now, since we can't have these festivals and concerts, and figuring out a way to monetize themselves on those types of platforms. And I think it's been very successful so far with people switching over to that way. And then also figure out ways to connect with the DJs. The DJs are really the controller of music. And with the song that I was talking about before with Conscious and Afrobeat, I mean, we would basically go to events to promote a song, as part of the PR campaign. Now what we've been doing is we've been popping in on DJs. Every DJ that has a live set will pop in and say, hey, how are you? They give a little 2-minute interview, and then they'll premiere the song. And so I've done that globally with DJs around the world. And then we just had to figure out how to talk to people and not say, okay, if I can't talk to Vibe and Billboard all the time about how to, put my music forth, I have to figure out what outlets work. And we've been successful with DJs and radio personalities using their personal platform to kind of get interviews in that kind of way. But those are the things that I've been seeing recently as far as pivoting.
Do you guys have, this might be slightly controversial, I think Bianca will know exactly what I'm talking about. Do you guys have OnlyFans in the US?
Yes, and I know people are making $100,000 a month.
Yeah. I mean, Beyonce did it with Megan Thee Stallion
a month.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's going to transition into different business. I mean, they're going to be locked off concerts, locked off content where people can subscribe. I know it started off kind of vulgar, but I feel like businesses are going to figure out how to infiltrate that market in a way that works for them. I see people who artists who have OnlyFans pages that are putting out content only for their subscribers in that kind of way. And I know agencies like ICM and other things like that are probably worried, but they're going to figure out a way to infiltrate that as well and get the dollars that way.
Yeah, because we didn't actually, it had always been slightly frowned upon, but then when Beyonce and Megan Thee Stallion had it in the song and it was suddenly trending and everywhere, we then started to unpack it a little bit more as a platform and as a channel. And we, MC and my team, started reaching out to people, and we saw that artists had started already releasing this music through OnlyFans and were already making money off of it that they could get through quicker than Spotify. So it was quite an interesting model actually for exclusives outside of what people have traditionally thought of it being a porn site or, whatever. I think
right.
It'd be a big one that people need to watch for sure.
Yeah. And then they also censor you on those other platforms. You can be yourself, you can be free and say what you want without getting bleeped out. So I think that's like what resonates to fans as well.
All right, our next question is for Vanessa. And Vanessa, we've read your bio. We know you graduated, was it in 2007? And you mentioned earlier that you started your career around 2010-ish. That's when you were doing your thing, and we want to know, like, what was the peak moment for you? Because after that, like, I mean, you definitely everyone hits their peak moment after a few years in the industry that we're in, that we call PR. And you've gotten to work with some major big clients. You've been behind, we saw the Savage Fenty fashion show, including Beyonce's Homecoming. So what we want to know is, like, what was the peak moment for you in your career, and when did everything just skyrocket after that? Like, how did that evolve?
Ooh, I don't know if I've hit a peak, but if I had to maybe identify a significant moment while doing this, I would say probably in 2011, I had the fortune of connecting with a young lady who was creating content for the web, which was like a really weird thing to be doing in 2011, because that's when YouTube just had like cat videos, and it was like America's Funniest Home Videos, but like online. And I met Issa Rae at that time, and she was really doing something unique and special with that platform. And although she didn't get her sort of like big break, I guess you would say, and 5 years later, when Insecure got picked up. But I think her and I aligning at that moment where I was in my career really changed my perspective and really changed how I wanted to do PR. I had been really focused prior to that I got to get on a team that has a big talent, and if already established, and if I want to make a name for myself, like I need to work with Beyonce, not literally, but like just someone who's like well established already. And she was really, I think, the first person that I met where I was like, I really believe in what you're doing, and I believe that you are going to change the culture. And when I started to think about my business in that way and saying, like, I really want to align myself with people who are going to make a significant change to entertainment, to literature, to film, TV, whatever it is, that's when a lot more opportunities started coming my way. And I think that now people really kind of associate me and my company with identifying talent early and helping them, build their career. So yeah, it wasn't sort of like this big, like, oh my God, like my client's on the cover of this, and it wasn't that so much. It was more so a moment where I shifted my perspective on the type of businesses the type of business I wanted to have.
Yeah, no, I definitely identified with that. Just coming from like the beauty side, like I'm working with the underdogs now, right? But I get more pleasure and I get more happy helping them grow. So that I definitely felt that.
I think I could just say this too. I think what that also meant though is that I had to be okay with like being broke longer, right? Because,
yeah.
But like it's true, yeah. Right? Like when you're working with small brands, you guys' case or in my case, when I'm working with talent that's, emerging also means broke or, limited funds, and all 100%. Of us publicists a lot of the times are the last people hired and the first people fired. So, when people start looking at their spreadsheets or their line sheets or their bank account, they're like, okay, who's like a non-essential part of the team? And it's usually, and then later on they find out how essential we are. But, they usually cut us out first. So when I made that decision, I also had to tell myself, okay, you need to be prepared to struggle a little bit longer than maybe you were hoping. So I don't want to seem like, oh my God, I'm going to work with like young, cool, emerging people and I'm going to be fly. No, you're not.
No. No, and I 100% agree with that. Even like from a press perspective, even when I'm pitching my brands, people are not gonna. I get ignored plenty of times when I'm trying to pitch my brands, right? Because they don't know that name. They obviously are gonna pick open up an email with a noteworthy or like what, you know, an advertiser versus like a small indie brand that's like, who are you? Okay, and I need to prioritize these bigger brands. Anyways, but you know, I think now more than ever, and I think in different areas, especially in the beauty industry. I mean, after what we call the Fenty Beauty effect, I'm sure a lot of you guys know that was what happened. Rihanna came in and changed the whole landscape of the beauty game, which is kind of sad in a way because it took so many years for it to happen that way, but at least it happened. And now more than ever, we're getting more opportunities from these different press outlets to like cover our brands, or they, you know, even brands are now starting to be more inclusive and diverse when it comes to their product ranges. So I mean, it's interesting to see, but I hear you 100%. It's always going to be a struggle, but if you're up for the struggle, then then all good. But thank you. So our next question. So for Kylie, again, you also have quite a trajectory. You've worked with in-house brands like Nike, Saks Fifth Avenue. You mentioned Amazon, Net-a-Porter, and you've definitely experienced different bubbles. And we want to know if there was a specific campaign that you may have worked on, a specific experience that also really changed and elevated the direction of your career, and that also inspired you to launch your own agency. When was that moment?
I would definitely say my time at Nike. I mean, Nike is all about innovation and pushing the envelope. More importantly, they're not even thinking about 2020. I mean, not to even be insensitive, but they're very much thinking about 2022, 2023. And so my time and my experience there, I always described it as not being the smartest person in the room, and just the thought process, the mind, the evolution of just constant, just thinking and being surrounded. So that experience was, and there's so many I could name, where from a campaign, whether it was working on the Olympics or working for the All-Stars at the All-Star weekend. I guess the second part of that in answering that question was how I have built and really, I guess, modified my business. When I first started off, my, I guess, list of what I worked with and who I worked with centered around fashion, sports, beauty, and lifestyle. I've since culled that back to just beauty, wellness, and lifestyle. You know, there's that whole saying, you can be trying to minimize being a Jane of all trades and a master of none. And so I really felt like it was important for me to hone my craft, know it well, but more importantly, also be an example within the industry and elevate my voice and use it to maximize for inclusivity and diversity, which was extremely important and something that I'm passionate about. But to mention, to just kind of going back in terms of like what helped kick things off, and how we've structured our company and who we work with is I, similar to Fran, only work with a very small group of clients at a time. In fact, prior to COVID, which I'll never do again, we had a waiting list in January. And that waiting list was actually waiting for a spot to open. We only worked with 6 clients at a time. Retainer fees were high. I wasn't apologizing for that. I'm always like, know your worth. And more importantly, to be able to give like that hands-on guiding clients through the process. So I structured a lot of like what we do from my past experience working on these big campaigns is more of a corporate mindset, thinking through the lens of like the brand and less in the lens of an agency, because I don't have agency background, but that has also been a positive and equally also a hindrance. So really, again, just making sure when it comes to our clients that we're really applying a method of like, looking into the future, but more importantly, strategizing in the way that, as I said, a Nike would.
Bianca, my next one is for you. And actually, I think yours is quite an interesting one. One thing that we've seen is I wrote actually a blog the other day about the amount of businesses that were started in the 2008 and 2009 crash. So you've got businesses that are now everybody's household names that at the time people have gone, what the hell are you doing? And they've got big VCs behind them and everything else. So there's obviously going to be, on the other side of this, a wave of businesses coming to pitch to you guys, as well as publicists and agencies that have been out doing that thing for a while. if somebody's launching a new business and they write to you, and we always have this interesting conversation with new clients, because sometimes I'll say to them, actually, if you want to get onto, say, a Forbes, we will say to them, write to them yourselves, actually do a really personalized note to them in the first instance. And if we're going into a bigger pitch, the team might go in for the bigger feature. But sometimes we like to work out where we implement the client's kind of personalness and love of their brand that we can do a job at representing, but they can do it best. So how would you say that people should be approaching you if you are a startup, or if you've had a big business and because of circumstances you've had to do a pivot, so you've now not got an agency or a publicist, but you need coverage to drive sales?
Yeah, obviously it's been a really difficult time for a lot of businesses, but it's also been a really exciting time because people have managed to regroup and sit at home and think about, how they want to pivot. And we actually so we do digital issues in lieu of having the print every month. So we did one this month just gone, which was themed around an event we did called Lockdown Live, which was basically, we had Ellie Goulding performing. It was a virtual festival, and it was all about community and the amazing things people have been doing during this time. And we did a digital issue around all of the features, and we asked people to submit any amazing businesses or powerful things that they'd been doing during this time. And we were flooded with people. One that actually really resonated was someone set up this company where obviously fashion has been in a bit of a difficult time. There's a lot of unsold stock. So a company are sending out stock from brands like New Look and Gap and selling it for 50% off, and then donating a meal to a family in Ghana on the back of it. And apparently we shifted 60,000 boxes through our feature, and it was the best traffic we've had of all time, in the history of Glamour. So that was really amazing, because we were supporting a charity initiative, helping fashion brands, helping a startup. So that was a really nice thing, I think draws it all together. But yeah, they literally just emailed our Glamour editorial inbox, and our fashion director spotted it, and she was oh, this is such a nice concept. So yeah, we cover that, and we literally, we read all the emails. It's just nice to actually help the underdogs as well as the big brands. So yeah, we've definitely been doing a lot of that, and we did quite a lot of features on the beauty brands that are giving back, or the beauty brands that maybe you haven't heard of that you need to know about, because yeah, we've got the Lauders of the world, but also there are small brands doing amazing things, so we try and celebrate everyone.
Okay. That's really interesting, because I think we pay, for the PR side of TFR, we pay quite a lot of money for Cision, to have all the contacts and Gorkana and everything else. And I guess people always have a nervousness about sending it to the general inbox of, is this actually just going into cyberspace and no one's ever going to open it? But you guys at Glamour are actually checking the general email, and then somebody from the editorial team, if it's of interest, will respond to that person directly.
Yeah, my editor Deborah loves the Glamour email. She's always forwarding things we should do this. So she gets lots of her ideas from there.
Okay, that's really interesting to hear, because I think a lot of people want the contact and then pay a lot of money to have those software to get the contact direct. So that's really
and great. Instagram as well, and Twitter. Our social media editor gets a lot of inspiration from DMs that she gets. She's oh, this story's really cool, or this account's really cool. So maybe we're just a super hands-on team, because we're always connected. But
that's interesting. Okay, so my next question is for Vanessa. I mean, when Danielle said, I'm writing to Vanessa, we were oh my God. We were super excited. And we were talking about the movement of My Publicist is Black, so many things, Issa Rae, Insecure, just levels. And then adding on you guys, what you do with Amazon Prime and those shows with Amazon Studios, and, Homecoming was just everything. The Fenty show was just incredible. When I started out, I actually wanted to be a celebrity publicist, and I think I did 3 events, and I was no, this is not for me on the real. I was we're going to jump back over to brands now. It was all super personal, and I guess now, we were saying earlier, you're a publicist, you're a manager, there's so many crossovers now in protecting somebody, because there are so many exposure points with camera phones and everything else that can catch you out that 10 years ago wasn't a thing. But obviously you guys had Issa Rae on the cover of Cosmo. I guess there's one thing getting a feature and getting a listing in a magazine and online, but to actually get the cover what is the process of somebody? Is there specific wording? Is there, you know, is it going to the picture desk? How do you go after like the big spot?
Working with talent is, some days I say, is this really want to devote your life's work to? Because, and I'm going to answer your question, but I do want to point out that you're not only working with the talent, you're also working with their family, you're working with their manager, their agents, their assistants, their friends, their cousins, their glam. There are 7,000 people for for each talent. So it's a lot of managing of personalities. But to your point about, press, I think that one, you have to have a very honest conversation with yourself and with your talent about where they are, right? And a lot of our job is managing people's expectations. I like to be really honest with clients because that's my style of living. Like, I'm very just an honest person. But yes, we want to be, aspirational. We want to say, yes, the goal is to eventually get on the cover of Cosmo. The goal is, that's not going to happen in 5 months. One, literally, that just could not happen. And two, like, you have to create something that changes the culture, or you have to do something, especially when you're a person of color. And you're a woman, especially when you're Black, you can't just sort of, unfortunately, exist. You have to be doing something really special or revolutionary. We're not afforded the same sort of mediocre space to thrive in as white people, if I'm being really honest. So having a conversation with yourself and saying, okay, in 3 years, in 2 years, next year, we can start pitching for these types of outlets. And then I think for Cosmo specifically, was maybe, oh my God, I think I really wanted, I had a moment where I said, I want to put Issa on the cover of Cosmo. And I said, okay, what's the first step to doing that? And the first step to doing that was, we did a small digital piece, right? I wanted them to see that if they did any coverage on Issa, that they would get the traffic, that people would come to them, that this was a talent that people wanted to read about and know about. So we started with something small on digital. And then I said, look, I know that was successful. Issa got a lot of shares. Luckily we live in a time where we can see, I can get data, right? I can get insights on how many people are swiping up on Instagram. I can get intel on, what's her search, the SEO stuff. Like, I can get that, and I share that with editors. And, what's interesting too is everyone has to remember is that the digital team is different from the print team. So I would work really well, or I tried to work as well as I could with the digital team, and then say, okay, we have this data. Let me go over to the print side and say, hey, let's do Issa's favorite beauty products. Let's just do that, right? Nothing crazy. Half the time, not for Issa, but a lot of the times, they're actually my favorite beauty products because talent doesn't care. So it's like, these are my favorite, you're feeling it, if I'm being completely honest, you're filling it out and you're like, hey, do you like these brands? They're like, sure, okay. And then the next one that we were able to do with Cosmo specifically is we did a really beautiful 6-page beauty spread in Cosmo. So it was something in print. It was all about, her amazing and, different hair options. And it really sort of, I think, set the stage for them to say, okay, this is someone who we could eventually put on a cover, right? And even when we were at the photo shoot, there were some shots that were taken. And I was like, I feel like that could be a cover. I feel like that's so good. That's such a good photo. And the photo editor obviously was there. And at one point, I think she brought her computer out and she put the photo in, you know, the cover of the magazine with the Cosmo, the branding at the top. And I was like, this is an amazing cover. Like, let's just do this. And I'm going to go ahead and take the credit and say that I believe that maybe sparked a little something where they were like, maybe she could be a cover star one day. And I mean, that was, I think, 3 or 4 years ago, where we did that beauty spread. And then I think the other part that I would love for everyone to remember too is, you know, I believe that Issa's a star. I think she's A-list talent. She is phenomenal and she deserves covers. And there has to be a point where, and it's dangerous and it's tricky and sometimes it can backfire on you, but there has to be a point where you say, I'm not doing the 2-page spread. I need a cover, right? And you kind of have to put your foot down and you have to say, don't come to me with a 1-page, offer with some existing art from 25 years ago. Like, give me a cover, or thank you, but no thank you. And it's really tricky and it's dangerous to do that. But it's a bit of a crapshoot and you just have to hope for the best. And that wasn't necessarily the case with Cosmo, but it has been with some other magazines. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But the Cosmo spread or the Cosmo cover, that's something we were really, really proud of. I'm really big about making sure that my clients have 1 foot in like mainstream media and then 1 foot in with, Black press or African American press. If we do the cover of Cosmo, we're also going to do the cover of Crown. If we give an exclusive to Deadline, we're also going to give an exclusive to Essence. Like, you have to really divide the wealth and we have an obligation. I think I definitely feel an obligation as a publicist of color to amplify Black media press outlets. So, it's the first thing is though, sort of saying this is the goal and then working backwards. How do we get to the cover? Well, it starts with, a small digital piece. A lot of times, that's why the Biancas of the world, man, can't pay for that, boy. That's the Biancas, honestly, and I'm being really honest, like the Biancas of the world are really the ones that can set a client up for long-term success. So yeah, thanks, Bianca.
Yeah, my entertainment director, Josh, is really good at sort of like spotting the upcoming talent. So my editor might be like, let's put, like Kate Winslet on the cover, the traditional celebrity. And he'll be like, no, we're getting this like Riverdale star, or like, yeah. We put Tracy Ellis Ross on our digital cover and did like a big, amazing Black Beauty issue. And it like blew up on Twitter. It was incredible. And like, it's just, exciting to not put a generic sort of like traditional celebrity on the cover.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, actually, which ones sell better and which ones do better in traffic. It's not who you might think.
Yeah. And also, like, who do you want reading your magazine? Do you want, 45-year-old white women who've been reading, or do, I think magazines have to also be honest with themselves and say, okay, who is this magazine for, and who do we want reading this? And are the people that we're putting on the cover, are they bringing the audience that we want? Like, to your point, like a young cool girl on Riverdale, that's a huge show with international appeal. Like, is that the cover that we want, or do we want like the older seasoned veteran actress who's been on 75 covers already, who has like a small show that has 2 episodes that's like on a network that's impossible to find? Like, you've got to have an honest conversation, I think, You guys
Yeah,
have
three. So we had like Victoria Beckham on our print, which also went online, but then Lily Reinhardt on our digital, and that like performed, like completely blew Victoria Beckham out the water. Whereas before I would be like, because they call me the grandma of the team, because I was like, who's that? And I didn't really watch Netflix for so long, and I was like, wow, like, so now we're like, right, got to target those Netflix stars.
yeah.
Awesome. Danielle?
So no, I'm loving this whole conversation. I can go on for hours and talk about this, but I know time is of the essence, and we have a few panelists that I know have, some attendees that have questions. So we are going to drop this down to our last two questions, and then we're going to start the Q&A. So my question, and this is on behalf of my students, my class of 2020, for those that want to tackle PR and even editorial and don't know in what area to get started in, what are your tips and how did each of you land in the industry that you're in? So don't feel like each of you have to answer this. If this question gravitates more to one of you and you guys want to jump in and answer, let us know. And I'm also asking this just because I'm also remembering myself 10 years ago. I didn't know I was going to end up in beauty PR. I just wanted to work in PR. It's just like, how does one get started? And what tips do you have? Because each of you, again, are in different spaces: entertainment, music, beauty. So if you guys have any tips for the students here on how to land and get involved in one industry, because again, one thing that I do have to say is like, once you get involved in that industry, like that's it, like your contacts are going to be revolved around that, and it's going to be harder to jump into different sectors after that. So again, what are your tips? And who wants to answer this first?
I can go first and just say, I think the most important thing is, research. You have to do your research. Like there's, you should forever be a student. I think even now, like I just had my team sign up for masterclass. There's always something to learn. There's always something to get better at. And I just really encourage, if this is a business that you want to get in, do your research, know the big agencies or even the boutique agencies that are really making significant waves in the business. You should know, maybe not their full, everyone who works there, but at least know like who started it, why did they start it, do as much legwork or research as you can. Obviously this is an industry that's really changed a lot in the past, 2 months, but really, 5 years, 10 years. And you need to be sure, I would say at least, try to be as equipped as possible with information. Read books. If you can, reach out to, one of us on the panel or people in our positions and say, hey, can I get 10 minutes to just get on the phone and ask you 2 questions? For information and for answers. You should never feel like you know it all. That, I'm ready to get into this business because I took, I'm a communications major. Girl, okay, like.
That's the truth.
Like those college experiences and definitely valuable. I think you can learn the basic functions of like how to write an email, but a lot of this business is this, right? It's the one-on-one with people. How do you, find contacts? How do you cultivate those relationships? So just constantly be searching for information. That would be my biggest thing.
I'll just quickly mention, I think it was Vanessa who said earlier, being reliable, coming prepared in everything you do. I interviewed probably a good 11 women, and 4 did not even come with their resumes. It's an immediate strike for me. You're not going to waste my time. And I stopped those interviews. It may come off as rude, but my time is, if you are not prepared and you expect for me to print out your resume and bring it to a meeting, that is not, I need someone to anticipate. So preparation is everything. Doing your research, following up once, twice, even going back to old school. We are living in unprecedented times, but writing a note, an actual handwritten note. The person who actually got the job wrote a note and left it at the front desk at our office with our receptionist. And that's how she landed the job, because when she finished, she left 2 notes for the people myself and another colleague. And at the end of the day, the receptionist handed us those notes, and I was like, she's got the job. Because for me, it just sealed a deal. It also, more importantly, showed that she was anticipating. So that would just kind of be my additional feedback too. I think it was Vanessa who made the point about just being reliable and showing that you're interested, because you don't necessarily have to major in PR. And quite honestly, I don't even, you don't even have to have a degree to work at 6-1. You just have to have a hustle and a willingness to learn, and more importantly, listen. Because I oftentimes say I'm hard but fair.
For me, I would say the biggest thing is mentors. I've been fortunate to have very good mentors. When I was interning, it was Lenny S. who worked, and Shaka Pilgrim, who used to work for Rockefeller, now Rock Nation. And just coming to them, and even another person in PR, Judith Iggyism and Madeline Nelson. And sometimes I'm difficult even into this stage, and I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Like, how can I make this project work? Am I approaching this the right way? And just going to them for guidance or just a catch up is just very influential to me in my career, and having those people that I can look up to and ask questions and say, even for mental health, like, just checking in with them, figuring out how the way to pivot your business, figuring out a way to pitch, how to approach things. I think mentors are very crucial for me.
Bianca, did you have anything to add to that?
I think, just adding to what Kylie said, I think it's just kind of second guessing what people might need. So the intern I spoke about earlier, Karen, she would maybe hear me say, oh, well, we haven't got this, or if people were stressed and overworked in the office, and the next thing you know, you'd get an email being like, I've sorted this. And it's just like having that initiative to just do it. And she never complained. And she later told me that she'd come home sometimes crying. She was so stressed, but she never showed it. She was so professional. Whereas, we have had some people that come in and they're like, oh, I can't lift that box because I don't want to break my nails and things like that. And it's like, please just muck in, because definitely on Glamour, we all like muck in and do everything. So I think just, being hands-on. And I remember my mum said to me, she was like, you will make tea for everyone. That's like how you'll start. And I've made a lot of tea. I did 15 unpaid internships, I think, in journalism. There was a lot of tea. I don't even like drink tea or know how to make it. And I used to see them throwing it away after I'd made it. But I was like, really
If I could just add really quickly to Bianca's point, like, no matter where you go work, and unless you're the boss or, very, very, very high up, or even still, I think you have to have a spirit of, I want to be additive and I want to be helpful. Like, for me, if you're not making my life easier, I don't know why I'm paying you, right? Like,
right.
I need you to make my day-to-day life easier. I need you to make the relationship with this client easier for me. So if you're not helping make the business better, and the best way that you can help me make my business better is by helping me taking things off of my plate, anticipating what I'll need. I don't need you to get my coffee, but, at minimum, ask me if I need it. Hey, I'm doing a Starbucks run. Do you want anything, Vanessa? Like, I might say yes or no, but like, just being helpful and like helping goes such a long way.
Do the last question, a little bit of a two, and then there's quite a lot in the Q&A, but I know the team have pulled together sort of 3 or 4 questions conscious of time. And I guess this is a real truth question. It's definitely a part of the truth of my life. As I said at the beginning, I got into communications because I wanted to change the narrative and the stories that were told, and I grew up not seeing anybody that looked like me. You had kind of the classical, the Cosby Show, those TV shows, but they were kind of few and far between. We've, as an agency, managed to stay straight down the middle, and I always say, we'll do it with a bit of cultural flex. So we add in like that vibe into everything we do. When we throw a party for a launch of a restaurant or a venue, we know Black people are going to be the first people on the dance floor to get that party starting. That's just, people may not want to talk about it in the boardroom, but fundamentally, as the agency led by a Black woman, I know that has to be in my strategy as to how we're going to get that pop in and people sharing on social media and everything else. But the other side to that is, when I first started, I struggled, actually. I was going to pitches and my name is Charlotte, so people are like, oh, she's Black. Especially in the UK, we don't speak about race and religion and all of those things as openly as you guys do in the US. We don't talk about politics probably until the last 2 years, when we really got into Brexit and why people wanted Brexit and things like that. It's very, very different. And one of the reasons I just so much love for Fran is because over the last little while that we've become friends, she, every time I'm in New York, she brings that fierce Black woman. Like, she keeps me going, because in the UK it's small, it's a lonely place, especially when you see stories like what happened yesterday that's taken over the news cycle. You feel very alone, and your friends and your colleagues who are white and don't understand it. It's a lonely place. You then add on the fact that you're the youngest in the boardroom, you're a female, you're Black. There are so many challenges that people can't talk about and don't want to talk about, and then they get given a quota of people of color that they have to add on, and they feel forced into situations. And it's an interesting dynamic. For you ladies, setting up your own businesses, running your own businesses, what advice would you give to, I don't want to say minorities, I don't want to say BAME, because I think they've become overused words, but people who have had a different upbringing, people who have come from a different background but want to get into what you do, what would you tell them to do? If I go to Kylie first.
Well, Charlotte, I can relate with a name like Kylie, which is Swahili, actually. When I was working and living in Australia, people were just blown away when I would walk into the room, because they assumed that I was going to be blonde and blue-eyed. And I'm 6'1", very proud Black woman. And so for my, I apologize, my watch is going off. I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? I've just gotten like 3 beeps in a row on my watch, so I'm going to throw it across the room. Okay, sorry.
People coming through who maybe think they're walking into rooms where they don't belong, or people don't look like them. What advice would you give to them?
I think it goes back to, if you are prepared and you come in with a sense of purpose and you do your research, whether the room looks like you or not, I really truly believe there's value in that. Setting yourself, you have to, I think any minority has to work harder and has to produce more and do more. Regardless, I played on an all-white volleyball team at USC. I was a one Black athlete. It's changed since, but that was my reality. And so best believe I worked my tail off to ensure, and I still apply that same level. And I really do believe in this day and age that as we move into a lot of uncertainty, that just being prepared. And I raise my hand, I will always provide an ear. I'm open to anyone who wants to reach out and connect with me. I'm one of those people. I also too, and I didn't say this before, but all the women that work with me are women of color. I have just strived to want to do that. My business coach, she's not a woman of color. And so she's like, Kylie, you can't be selective in that way, but I will be honest, it's my agency. I can do whatever I want. So I hire women of color, and there's an Asian on our team. There's an Indian woman. There's 2 Black women. I'm proud of that, and it's wonderful. And not all of our clients are people of color. So I will just say, be prepared and really, show good work. If you ever are in doubt, even when it comes to your resume, send your resume out, get that feedback. Canva is a great platform for really just, again, stepping up your A game and design process around that. So I know it was a long answer, but that's my thoughts.
I saw something really recent, like probably in the past 2 weeks, where probably on Twitter, where someone said, that they wanted to start having the confidence of a mediocre white man. And I was like, oh my God, this is literally it, right? And I said, I really want, even for myself, but definitely for people who are in spaces where you're the only woman, or you're the only person of color, like, have that spirit of, I belong here. Mediocre white men feel that they belong everywhere and can do anything, and they give themselves the grace of, if I don't do it right, it's okay. This idea of, I can try again, or I can find another path to the destination. And I think that that's something that we all need to adopt. I think especially women. I think that there's 2 parts when you're a person of color and a woman. Sometimes I walk into a room and I'm more aware of my womanness, or my womanhood, than I am of being a Black person. And then there's other rooms where I walk in and I'm like, ooh, okay, I am the only color in here. You know, so I do think that at different moments, you have to kind of tap into different parts of yourself. But I think that the main thing is, you know, I think to Kylie's point, if you've done your research, if you've done your homework, if you're prepared, you have to remember you deserve to be in that space. And also, like, not to get all woo-woo on you, but like God's put you in that room for a reason. And the reason is to either give a different perspective and maybe ignite or inspire. It's for you to learn a lesson. So whichever the purpose is, it's still good, right? So if you go into a situation knowing like, I'm gonna be the only Black woman in here, or I'm gonna be the only woman, or, you know, the only, you know, person of color, whatever it is, you have to go in confident and tap into your inner, you know, mediocre white man, and you'll be fine.
Fran?
I agree with everything that everyone has said. I would just like to add, you know, don't be discouraged. I mean, a lot of times I would go into a room and I'm so excited. I'm like, oh my God, this big brand called me and I'm gonna go to this meeting. And then I get there and like, okay, so yeah, so we have this multicultural content that I'm like, oh, okay, that's why I'm here. I'm here to take care of the Black audience or the hip hoppers or whatever you want. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to show you right. I'm going to knock this campaign out of the park, and then I want to discuss with you how I can take this brand to the next level in a whole. People try to pigeonhole you as a minority, but really the minorities are really running a lot of the industry. Hip hop is one of the largest music industries there, so it's pop culture, whether you want to admit it or not. And so what I do is I like to make my events be a 360 view of what the actual industry is. So yeah, you're coming to multicultural, but I'm going to have everybody in the room. I'm going to have Forbes, Business Insider, as well as Vibe and Billboard in the room covering the event, and try to show them that this is actually shown in every sector of the world, as well as being able to give them ideas once that's executed of how we can make this a broader idea. So I say, don't be discouraged. Take the jobs, be that only person, but just execute it to the max, and they will see that, you know, you're the person that can actually influence them and actually help their brand or company be bigger.
And just to add on to that from experience, I think it's like, I look at myself when I first started and I was the token multicultural PR expert. I was just starting out. I didn't know any better. And I would struggle and get super frustrated with my white counterpart, like my white colleagues. I was like, I hate, like, they don't get it. I used to say they just don't get it. But instead of getting frustrated, I ended up twisting it and telling myself, you know what, they need me. They need to get educated on this. Like, look at it from that perspective too. Like, if they can have you, they wouldn't know any better. And that's why so many mistakes happen, right? In the beauty industry, we're constantly seeing like that one brand that only launched 10 shades of beige. And it's like, well, let's look at the internal team and see who came up with those 10 shades. Why was there not a woman of color there advising them like, hey, this is actually wrong. Like, let's rethink this. Like, there always needs to be that. And like, I think, look at it as an opportunity for you to grow and like speak up. So if you see something that's not maybe okay, that's being said, like, I had to get uncomfortable, right? And speak up and say like, actually, I don't agree with that. And yeah, I was the only brown, you know, person in the room saying it, but it was like, at least it kind of sparked their ears, and it's like, okay, well, let's rethink this. Why? And you always have to include a rationale as to why that doesn't make sense, or why maybe this makes sense. So look at it that way too. Sorry. Okay, I'm done.
So we're going to jump in to just a couple of questions, because I'm very aware that we're running very late, but some really fantastic answers. So the first one that I'll start with, because I think this will box off a lot of the other questions. How big of a role does storytelling play in your respective industries? And what do you find is the most difficult part about ensuring said message story is received how you intended? Who's best? Who's the storyteller of the group?
I feel like I'm the storyteller because I'm dealing with people, if I'm being honest. You know, I think there's definitely some storytelling when it comes to brands, because every brand has a story, right? But I do think when you're dealing with people and talent, the storytelling part is what differentiates your talent from the next person. You know, there's 75 million actresses. What makes your talent special? And I think that for me, that starts with, do I sign someone I will only sign someone who I believe has a story that's worth telling, a story that's inspiring, a story that is aspirational, or, you know, a story that's, you know, defied the odds. So, you know, coming up with a client to draft what that story is, and being honest with ourselves about, you know, are there parts of your story that we don't want to talk about, or that we don't want to highlight, or we want to kind of just skim over. And sometimes, especially now, you can't get away from that stuff, but it's preparing the client. You know, they say, look, this is a part of your past, and this is a part of the story, and we have to be prepared to talk about it, but this is the language that we use. I cannot, for the most part, control how media, you know, will write about a client, right? All I can do is present our version of the story and give my client the tools to navigate difficult questions, or to, you know, be consistent when they're talking about their story or their journeys. So, you know, part of it is coming up with the client, like, hey, what's the story that we want to tell? Or what parts of the story do we want to highlight when we're, you know, talking about this particular project? And then the other part is really preparing the client so that when someone possibly comes to them with a question that, you know, could ignite some anger or even just anxiety, a lot of the times clients will go off track when they feel anxious and scared and nervous. But it's really preparing clients for, like, hey, you know, I always equate it to like preparing people for court. Like, if you were going to go on the stand, like, you have no idea what the defense, or, you know, whoever it is going to ask. But these are some things we might get asked. How would we prepare? Media training, you cannot, oh my God, it's the greatest tool, you know, that we have as publicists, I think. So, you know, a lot of it is, let's craft our story. Let's make sure that you're equipped to keep that story consistent no matter what questions get thrown at you.
Danielle, do you want to pick one from what the guys sent across?
I have another question here that I think it's valuable to share during these times. So what areas of PR and communications do you see growing, emerging as a result of COVID's impact on the industry? I'm gonna off the bat say, I mean, we already touched upon social. No one has mentioned TikTok yet, but I'm gonna let you guys chime in. And what areas do you see growing and room for improvement, or an area that we can also take opportunity in during these times? Who wants to answer that one?
I can just quickly say, you know, the tightening of storytelling is as necessary and important. Also being, so many media right now are time poor. So we hosted a virtual desk side. We gathered, we had 39 editors attend, and we made a point to put it into the digital invite that it was 20 minutes of their time. And in addition, we sent them gift certificates to Postmates, Seamless, DoorDash for $30, whether they chose to use it prior or post. But we stuck to that. And it was really, I think, in terms of like making sure your messaging is tight and consistent, and how you're also eliminating number one, fluff language, more importantly, just the unnecessary assets. Like, we don't send press releases. I just don't believe in them anymore. I'm more of a fact sheet and combination of thing. It's a little bit of who, what, when, where, and why. So I think it'll be just making sure when you are communicating with media that there's purpose behind it. And also it's a really tight message. And I'll be honest, we actually don't do any of our writing. We have a copywriter, and she works behind the scenes at a magazine. So it's money under the table for her. She doesn't make a lot, and it's great. She's a woman of color, and she just whips those pitches out for us very quickly. So tapping into various tools, where I'm weak, she is strong.
Okay, from all your experiences, what would you say is the most important quality every PR specialist should maintain as they progress in their career and as the world continues to rapidly change?
I guess I can say personable skills. I mean, being able to go from place to place and being able to have a personal touch and be able to relate to people and be able to go into a room and say, and knowing how to adapt is very, very crucial. I mean, especially when you're taking your business internationally like I am. I talk to people differently when I'm in Jamaica, than I'm in UK, than I'm in Ghana, because they all communicate on a different level. And just learning how to navigate those spaces and but still having your voice heard is very crucial, I think, for me in expanding your business. People actually fall in love with you, and that's been a problem for me with a couple of my clients, because they were my friends, you know. And when I wanted to refer them to somebody else, it was a big thing. Like, why don't you want to work with me? I'm like, it's become the juggle of which client you got to be with at a certain time, especially when you have events like the Grammys, where you have like 5 people on the carpet at one time, and you got to figure out which one you're going to be aligned with versus your staff. So I think just having a personal relationship and being very personable with your clients, and then everything surrounding them is very important, for sure.
How has cancel culture, quote unquote, cancel culture impacted your work with clients, brands, and companies? People are found to be more supportive of environmental protection, vegan brands, addressing a problematic past mistake, or just overall transparency. How has it been trying to be up to date to new topics and subjects addressed in modern media? This is a good one.
We actually did like a big feature in our print issue about cancel culture, because I don't know if you follow Estee Laundry, but it's sort of like the beauty version of Diet Prada, and like our beauty editor was kind of like attacked on it because she was on a press trip and something went viral they didn't agree with. There was nothing to do with her, but it was her photos, and she was getting like hundreds of messages from people like, you're awful, and then people were chiming in like, I've worked with her on a shoot, she's so rude, and like just seeing how like upset she was in the office. People just think it's confidence behind the keyboard. They forget there's a real person they're talking about. So I inspired us to do like a big feature on like cancel culture and, you know, why people are doing it. But we have actually noticed that through COVID, we actually think it's helped stamp out a lot of cancel culture, because there's so much negativity going on at the moment that we've noticed that the trolls have actually simmered down. It's like really, really refreshing. We're hoping that it stays that way. But yeah, for us, it's so difficult because, I mean, we are like an empowering feminist brand, so we have to be super careful with anything that we cover. But yeah, the trolls are there like that if we like step out of line at all. But I'm hoping that maybe there might be a more positive future online after this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think that's it. I know there's lots more questions which we'll try and find a way to answer for people, but very conscious that our panelists have been with us for longer than anticipated today. So thank you. To everybody that has tuned in, we will send out emails with details for internships and all the links and everything else. For the 3 days that we're doing these classrooms, myself and Danielle, we will be sending out edited versions, sound bites. You'll be able to watch it back in full. All the panelists will have them as well. So you'll be able to watch it back, write down any gems as well, post this. So thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And reminder that tomorrow we will be doing it at the same time, except it's going to be around beauty entrepreneurs and brand building. So we'll see you guys there.
Thanks, guys. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.